Welcome to today's epic workout where we wrap movement and mobility and even exercise around specific themes that we aim to embody and to learn about to enrich our lives. I'm Alex Iglesia, creator of the epic workout and Being Epic, and today we're going to be looking at the 30-second hexagram. So 30-second hexagram in I Ching is built up of 2 trigrams that we can express as stepping back up and wide. We call this gateway. And then stepping forward, down and narrow, bridge. So it tells an embodied story of self-acceptance, self-appreciation that comes into connection with care. In our practice, we'll be walking through that mechanically. You may have just tried it with me, and that's awesome. We'll be walking through that, and I'll show you how it is building the hexagram line by line. Then we'll do a little bit of mobility that's connected to how our joints, our hips, our shoulders, and our neck especially, need to be able to function to practice this move even more. Then we'll focus it all in on one strength and conditioning move that embodies the entire intention. And finally, a few minutes of final integration, going a little bit deeper and giving us an opportunity to heal, to transform, to embrace that shadow side of failure, to align with and find our authentic way today with preservation of what we care about, and even opening ourselves up to more synchronicity and fun with the city of veneration. So if you've got the 32 in your Human Design chart or your Gene Keys profile, fantastic. If you don't and you want to understand the deeper mechanics of these principles, then this is for you. Here we go. We're going to start with the 2 basic moves. The 2 basic moves come from UZAZU, the mind-body method, and we step back, up, and wide. And I'll walk you through the hexagram of how and why we build these in a minute. So we've got this back, slightly yin or flexed spine, up, active but not extended, and then wide. Our second pose, the second trigram of the 32, is to step forward, to come down, surrender to gravity, let gravity take over a bit, and come narrow. So everything is forward, attention, arms, and then everything is down, attention, arms, and everything is narrow. Attention comes into focus, and we're here. So this is bridge, and this is gateway. So try it out a few times. We'll do 3 rounds just mechanically. Just try it out and see how it feels. Stepping back up and wide, and forward, down and narrow. Step back up and wide. Make sure it feels good enough. None of these moves you need to stretch too much or work too hard. Step forward, down and narrow. Back up and wide, and forward, down and narrow. Now, let's move through that just more smoothly. Here we go. Back up and wide. Feel your joints. Feel any tensions. Notice the quality of the movement. Step back up and wide again. Forward, down, and narrow. Back up and wide brings us to attend to ourself. And forward, down, and narrow brings our attention down in a listening, connected way with others. So let's take a minute to look at why are we creating this move this way. So let me show you the hexagram. Here's the 30-second hexagram from the Gene Keys, great resource. And we build the first trigram, the bottom 3 lines, and then the top trigram, the top 3 lines. Bottom line is yin, so we're going back. Second line is yang, so we're going up, making it active. And third line is yang, where we go wide, making this more about relating to things, not being in them and focused. So by itself, gateway is focused on self, it's active, and we're relating to. So who are you in the world that's acting that you can relate to? And that's a broad brushstroke of what we're looking at here, what this lets us focus on. Within that, there's a lot. There's shame, there's emotions, there's your thoughts, there's your self-image. So it's really about, ideally, self-esteem, healthy. healthy self-esteem. The second trigram, the top 3 lines, or the fourth, fifth, and sixth line of this hexagram, are yang, so we're coming forward. Yin is the second line here, so we're coming down, sensing. And yin again is narrow here, so we go, yin for the third line is narrow, so we come narrow. So the embodied story here is our attention here is more on other, so we're letting go of self to some degree. We're coming down, so we're less active and more sensing. And we're coming narrow, getting into it, getting focused. So we're forward with the other, we're sensing and we're focused and we're really in it. Now, how many of you really need more of that time for yourself to be listened to and connected with, or you need to find that friend, that colleague who you can connect with and feel a deep sense of trust and safety in your body with the other. So we put the two together, stepping back up and wide into the gateway, into self-acceptance, self-esteem, and ideally bringing that forward into the connection. The synergy of those two themes, or those two building blocks, creates the pattern of the 32. And so imagine if you can't connect to yourself because of shame, because of mindset, because it's not okay in a particular context, and you can't come forward and sense and care. So this defines or sketches out a particular quality of failure. If we do have the ability to reflect on ourselves, maybe not entirely, but in a particular context at least, and from that place make a move to connect to something that's important, then we're preserving. Even if we're preserving the tension or a friendship in a conversation, or you're in the kitchen, you're like, I want to keep this for a little while, or a gift, and you're clearing out the clutter from your home, and you're like, you know what, this I want to preserve, this matters. Well, it matters because there's something in you that is meaningful. There's a story, there's a narrative, there's a history, and that is deeply connected to, it's rightly connected to the focus and the care and the goodness that can bring to your life. So we can go on and on with the 32, but hopefully that sets up our game here. So these are the themes we want to mobilize around. To create our mobility, and we'll be coming back to doing a deeper dive last pass with just purely the 32. But everything we're doing in the Epic workout right now is based on cultivating these 32 energies: failure, preservation, veneration, the ability to connect with yourself in a thoughtful way and connect. So the movements then, what do we need to do with our mobility? First of all, there is a lot going on with the neck and shoulders in this movement pattern. And second, there's a lot going on with hips, going from adduction in our hips to full flexion, or to some degree flexion. So we're going to be interested in hip mobility specifically and shoulder to neck mobility. Where would you like to start first? I'm going to start with the shoulders. Hopefully that works for you. To start with the shoulders, take your arms straight down, bring your feet more or less together. If you need some more balance, take them wider. Internally rotate the shoulders by taking your thumbs back. It's okay if your shoulders come forward a bit. We're going to look just at shoulder internal rotation, and then flip that entirely around. Bring your elbows and biceps forward to externally rotate your shoulders, and we've got external rotation. Internal rotation and external rotation. Aim to feel it up in the shoulder, not just the elbow. So this isn't, yes, you're going to get some rotation in your wrists and elbow, and that can be great for typing, but aim it to your shoulder. Now, to make this a bit more obvious, bend your elbows, bring your hands across your body, and then externally rotate at the shoulders by taking your hands wide. In and out. So internally rotating and externally rotating. Now, once you've found your comfortable end range of motion, move between the two. I've got a failure of a light bulb that does not need preservation right now, it needs replacement. clearly. So we've got internal and external rotation of your shoulder. One of the things we're looking at here is this narrow to wide dimension. So we're in something with the narrow, and we're reflecting or relating to something on the wide. And having a healthy balance between being able to take a perspective on something and then just dive right into it can be really good. When I went to college, my intention was I'll put my head down for 4 years and I'll come out the other end. I had a lot of narrow. And we've got narrow in the bridge, and we've got wide in the gateway. So we're blending and finding the synergy of wide and narrow when we look at the 32, which means there's something important about that when it comes to failure, overcoming and integrating our failure, as well as stepping into more of a healthy, aligned preservation of what matters. So we've got internal and external. Now come back to arms straight down, and again, see if the internal and external rotation has changed. If you've got a little bit more intelligence in the shoulder, maybe a little bit less stiffness or gunkiness. Okay, that's shoulders part 1. Part 2 is going to be to bend your elbows and come into a row position. So bring your elbows back, extending through the shoulders. Then gently, gently take your head to the left and right, just a little bit. So we're looking to free up the front and the back muscles that connect neck and head to shoulders. So your scalenes and your trapezius. Don't push it, just so see where your range is. Then take your arms all the way out and a little bit across. One hand on top of the other is fine. Just want to create a bit more narrow. And again, rotate head left and right. If for some reason that makes you dizzy, make it smaller, slow it down, and keep your gaze focused. And if you'd like a little bit more challenge, if it feels free, use your eyes to look where you're going. Your nervous system, your visual system will facilitate your mobility, but that might be too advanced. So play with it as you like. Okay, so part 1 again was we're in a row with extension in the shoulders, and then part 2 is we're doing flexion and abduction. So next, just bring the movements together. If this is easy and feels really good and you're not already a little bit tired, then start to reach higher until you get your lats or just range of motion closes down a little bit. And then again, all the way back, and this time extend at the elbows. So you're exploring what's the full capacity for this pattern. You can go wide as you go back and narrow as you come forward. Find your sweet spot. So yeah, work it, and at the same time, don't put too much effort in. The ideal way to do this is in a way that you actually are getting more range of motion with less effort. And of course, if this is your first time doing this, you might get tired. There's a lot of small stabilizing and mobilizing muscles in your shoulders and neck, and you might find a weak spot, and that's okay too. So just be gentle. Let it go. Shake your body, bend your knees, shake a bit. We're gonna let go of the shoulders now. But before we do a brief retest. How is your neck rotation? Is it any better? Generally speaking, it will open up as you improve your range of motion through your shoulders. Now we're gonna bring our attention down to our hips. And when we come into bridge, there's 2 things that we want to focus on. One is that your core is staying stable as you come forward. You don't need to come forward really far, but there's some forward, and that's going to create a requirement for stability, especially through your core, but also in the front, back and front. The second thing is we're moving into some hip flexion and knee flexion and ankle flexion, and then back. Your muscles need to stop you to support you to come back, so we need to have that stability. So try this, just a light stepping forward and back. This will be our strength and conditioning move in a minute. But let's then look at how is this doing for you as a range of motion. So take your time now to explore. One leg forward, come down all the way to your knee. If you need some support, you don't have a blanket, or you don't have a soft surface, use a blanket or a pillow. And we're going to now see how does it feel to come into deeper hip flexion. Move your front foot or your back leg so that you can adjust and find a full range. From the side, explore what is a full range. You can take your arms down for support and back. What is a full range for you today? And once you've found that full range for yourself, stop in the forward position and move your knee back and forward just a little bit. It's okay if your torso goes with it. Just trying to create a bit more activation in some of the deep hip flexors and extensors. Now shift out of that and wiggle your pelvis left and right. So see if there's a bit more freedom you can get in the relationship between your femur and your pelvis and your spine. Last bit, do just a little bit of a twist. All these moves you can scale up if they feel good. You can make the movement larger if they feel good. But for right now, we're kind of opening up everything around this hip joint. Okay, now come out of that position. Let's retest. Now we've only done one side. There ought to be a difference between your left and your right side now. Small step forward and back. Step the other leg forward and back. And how does that feel? Try a reach with it. You reach forward and reach the other side. Great. So for sure, the side that I have not mobilized yet feels way slower, gunkier, and less reactive. Let's do that side now. So come down to the floor, switch legs from before. Explore what is your range of motion. Adjust your foot so that you can feel like you can come as far forward as you can in a way that you can also confidently come back out of. Use your hands if you want to and need to. Once you've got the full range, pause forward and give your knee a wiggle. Just a little bit is fine, is more than enough. And if you want, you can go wider, but that's not very important. The important thing is the activation, is your nervous system feeling good and safe with the movement pattern. That's what lets your body feel safer and then actually increase your range of motion. Next, come a bit more vertical. Wiggle the pelvis left and right. Again, it's not for the stretch, it's that you feel like you've got some control. You can breathe. You can relax. Relax and full breathing means that your nervous system is happy and you're actually improving. If you're holding your breath or you're kind of leaving your body, then you're not learning too much. Your body's actually a bit in fight or flight or freeze. We don't want that to make progress with our body. Third, create a bit of rotation. If it feels really good and easy, make it a bit bigger and wider. Don't push it. Exit this position, retest both legs, small step forward and back. Okay, rest. We're moving on to our strength and conditioning portion. Now I'm going to get my timer so that we have a nice solid minute to play. But here's the movement. The movement is essentially from a wide-legged stance to a forward lunge with a reach. Now, our 32 is gateway to bridge, and that doesn't need to be a big move at all. But we're going to strengthen and condition that basic pattern. First round is just body weight. Second round, if you want, you can add a dumbbell or some cat or something that gives you some resistance to work with. You can also use a cable row. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the movement then, just to teach it to you, is stepping forward, reach, and back. Stepping forward, reach, and back. Now the reach by itself starts to partner with gravity to need your back to hold things together. Same thing with your quads and your hamstrings to stop that forward motion. If the movement is easy, as we step into it for 1 minute, you can make it bigger and deeper. you can also make it faster. Now, when you do step forward, if you do start to go further and deeper, make sure that you're not coming onto your toes, but that you're staying in your heel. So whatever it takes to feel the drive from your heel through your legs into your core is going to give you a bit more oomph out of this. So let's begin for 1 minute. Here we go. Stepping forward and reaching. Find a range of motion that feels right. Find your breath. And if it feels easy or you start to get a bit bored, then start to explore and experiment with what would make it more challenging. If you lose control, bring it back, scale it back. If you're not yet stepping back wide, try widening the step back. It'll give you a lot more variable to challenge your nervous system and challenge your strength with. That's our time. So pause for a moment. And to rest, let's actually come back to the 32. Stepping back in up and wide. Let your hands be forward enough that you can see them, but not too forward. And gently step forward, down, narrow. Reconnect with the words of preservation, self-esteem in gateway, coming into caring connection and bridge. Great. If you've got a rest time when you're working out, why not use it to align with something important to you? And you can do that whether you're doing CrossFit, HIIT, a group exercise program, yoga practice, or an epic workout. So round 2 for our final minute is the challenge round. You can use dumbbells. Now I've got some dumbbells, and when you add weight, and these are just 5-pound dumbbells, but when you add weight to functional movement, it's a lot. It feels like a lot more than 5. So something like dumbbells can be used to create a lot more resistance, and you can play with the range of motion. You can play with even the movement pattern. So we could spend a few days just developing strength and conditioning around this basic movement pattern, which is great because the 32 lasts for 6 days. So we can do that. So our minute now is to play with speed or weight or depth in a way that takes you to an edge with your breath or takes you to an edge with muscular endurance and stamina. But other than that, stay tight, stay controlled, and you're practicing preserving or preservation and even veneration, adoring and really caring as you do this move. So this move really ought to leave you feeling more clear about yourself and more connected to what matters. Here we go, 1 minute. Begin. That's our minute. So rest with the 32, and we'll use this to come right into our deeper dive. So stepping back, observe your breath. take a moment to check in. How do you feel about yourself right now? What's a word that describes you? And then come forward into bridge lightly. Coming forward, feet falling down a bit into more sensing, letting go of muscular tension and action. What's something that matters to you? If you're not sure, you can start with breathing matters to me. So we'll start with preservation, using the theme of preservation. What are you preserving, or what can you preserve about you? What can you preserve that's important about you? Bring the movement in to bridge by coming forward, down, and narrow. What do you want to preserve that matters? What do you want to preserve that matters? Now recognize, by asking to that ideal state, to that outcome, there can be a lot of things that are in the way. Mindsets, challenges, beliefs, self-belief, all sorts of things. And specifically, the things you think about yourself, so mindsets and beliefs. And your willingness, or the vulnerability, or the courage to connect or stand for what matters. So let's look at failure for just a few rounds to presence and create a courageous presence for embracing that shadow. In what ways do you sometimes consider yourself having failed or a failure? When you connect with what, do you feel sometimes like you have failed or like a failure? Now just do the movements. Allow any emotions or sensations to pass, to move. Be gentle with the movement. Move like you are gently, caringly ironing out some wrinkles of a shirt. You got a shirt that you really care about. You'd love it to look good. So you spend a few minutes ironing it before going out for the date or the meeting, or just because you value yourself. So by having touched in on the shadow and asked some inquiries, that may have brought up stuff in your sensations and emotions and thoughts. By gently being honorable with the movement pattern, you start to iron that out. By now, maybe your body's feeling a bit better and you're surrendering to the pattern. So let's open it up for our final few moments. What could you preserve that you care about that impacts how you know yourself? What could you preserve that you care about that impacts how you know yourself? Again, if that brings up anything other than more joy and energy, then soften the movement. Trust the mechanics of the movement. And just observe your inner process. For our final bit of practice here, pick a direction You don't need to see me for this. You know the moves now. Pick a direction that feels right. So kind of aim your bridge somewhere. Once you've found a spot, there might be an object in the room, or use your imagination. Like I'm looking at a plant of orchids, an orchid plant. And there's something about that object or what comes to your imagination. So connect with that for a moment. What's a quality of that that stands out to you as valuable? Bring it back into your gateway. And while you're observing that imaginal object or that physical object and being aware of that quality, can you make the room to see that quality in you? Drop your arms, let the practice go, shake it out a bit. Thank you for participating in today's epic workout. This may have churned up a lot, and hopefully you feel fantastic. So let me know how you feel. I will post additional videos you can play with as I create more and more hexagram-based epic workouts. And again, if you are using these movements to understand yourself more in human design or gene keys, then fantastic. Reach out and let me know how this is going for you, what wakes up for you. And my last recommendation is play with this and experiment with this fundamental practice for the next few days. Because every day that you work with these patterns, they will grow in you, both inwardly and functionally. You get more confident. You will notice what in your body needs some mobility or some care. You'll develop some strength and some resilience. And don't make the mistake to think that, well, okay, I've done it once, I don't need to do it again. Instead, find little ways that you can build it in your day, and you can see these themes playing out for you, and then you can create more conscious choices around them. So thanks for being epic, and thanks for being you. I'll see you in the next experience.